Right off the top, what you can see is LinkedIn starting with something, Jason, that we've recommended, which is spotlights on employees and specifically a quote. They actually have a nice little carousel here, and it dives into different employees who are in different parts of the business.
Yeah, I mean they're leading with their people, which I think if I had to give somebody advice on where to start on a careers page, I'd say put your current employees front and center. So it looks like they're doing that. So I'd give them kudos on that. I think it's a good starting point.
I like that approach as well. The one thing I wish I could get more of here is besides just a quote, just some way to dive in further and maybe find out about, Dhruva Chandra's, personal story at LinkedIn. There's no real way to do that. And so I'm kind of left feeling like these are sort of superficial quotes, which again is, I think, better than nothing. I would still like to be able to just see that full story. So if I could think about it like almost as a case study, right? When someone's looking for a vendor, for instance, a quote is fine. A case study is even better, right? So to be able to click in and read soup to nuts how that vendor has made someone else successful is great. I would like the same here. Also, putting multiple people together like this can be a little bit overkill. It's nice that there's a carousel, but at the same time, I'm not sure that you're going to sit here and read everyone's quotes right off the bat. You kind of, you're using all your gunpowder right up front. I'd prefer if you could spread those out throughout the careers page and have that social proof cascading throughout. So if we scroll down and we continue, you can see the next thing, which is interesting to me. The next thing here is that they talk about their products, the sort of the mission behind them and how they make people more productive and successful. I find that interesting just because a lot of times companies are going to be focused on perks and benefits or a picture of a ping pong table or something like that. Whereas with LinkedIn, it's interesting that the second thing right underneath the fold is the product. And again, sort of the carousel thing here, right? They're going to show you two or three things. The first was something about how they've redesigned their website. This one is about how they help with learning in the business. And this is about LinkedIn Recruiter. So that's interesting as well, I found.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think we in recruiting, HR, and like sales also take for granted that we are in LinkedIn all the time and using it. But that's probably not true for all the people that they're trying to sort of recruit. Engineers are notoriously not really on LinkedIn that often or that regularly, right? Maybe to update their credentials or experience. So I guess all that to say, and there might be a decent size of the candidate pool who's not actually that familiar with what LinkedIn is, the actual product, right? They know it's a place where their resume lives and they update it when they're looking for a job, and that's it. So they're sort of putting this out there and saying, look, this is actually what we do. Here's how we help customers, which you may not be familiar with. So that's kind of cool.
One knock on this section here. I'm not sure how much to me this resonates. LinkedIn's redesigned desktop, new look, new navigation, new features. It's just kind of inside baseball, which I'm not sure really differentiates them that much.
Yeah, it feels like it was lifted directly from the product marketing page and just slapped on here.
Exactly.
Okay, let's just use that same language here.
So if we keep scrolling down here, there's a little bit of a sizzle reel, kind of typical, I think, for tech companies, shots of people meeting, shots of people on the computer, shots of people. I'm going to guess there's something around some ping pong table or some activity at work or something like that, potentially. I guess it's interesting. I don't know. Again, maybe it gives you a little bit of a sneak peek into the sort of informal aspect of working at LinkedIn and how it's a little bit more laid back, a little bit more, again, it's a technology company, right, in California. So make of that what you will. Oh, there we go. Someone playing billiards, not ping pong. Someone on a scooter. I mean, some of these things are a little bit cliche, right? And again, I don't know how much they differentiate you. And that's really what I'm looking for when I'm looking at careers pages is how are you differentiating yourself? Some of these things, again, they're just kind of checking the box. Some pros and cons here, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there's a place for everything here. I think I agree. But if it's not that much of a differentiator, which this doesn't seem to be, then it probably shouldn't be the third thing that I'm seeing on your main career site, right? Maybe bury it a little bit deeper, right? Still have it, but it shouldn't be so prominent.
So here's where I think it starts to get a little bit more interesting for me. They leverage one of their biggest aspects, which you brought up earlier, which is just how many members they serve, right? You probably do know LinkedIn already, and maybe you don't know the full scope of that, but they tell you, well, it happens to be 500 million plus members here, which is pretty. There's not many companies that can say that today. Talent, especially top talent, who's trying to find a new place or is maybe exploring you casually. They are looking for impact. They do want to feel like, they're not just a cog in a machine. Even though LinkedIn is a big machine, the impact can be spread across basically a sizable percentage of the planet. And that's, I feel, a really cool selling point to me.
I mean, if I was in the market for a job right now, yeah, I'm always thinking about, what kind of company can I work for and what kind of impact can I make there, And this gives you tangible examples of outsized impact, right? Outside of just going in and, clocking in 9 to 5, you can have some real impact here, which I think can be powerful for the right person.
And they dive in to
Yeah,
that
you can
point,
dig
right?
in. Yeah.
You can see that they actually have, and this is what I was talking about earlier, almost in a different way, though, a different spin. These are basically case studies of the way that they've impacted people who are their members and who do use LinkedIn. And to me, that's a powerful way to communicate to someone, this is how your work impacts people.
I wonder what kind of metrics they're looking at for this stuff, right? It's an important thing. You might never know what's going to work, but hopefully in the background, they're testing this stuff. Can they see where the drop off is on this video? Can they get some feedback on maybe a heat map of the website, right? I wonder if a lot of stuff like that is happening in the background, which is, you're never going to know what's going to work, but you should be finding ways to test and understand quickly whether it is or not, right? And then move on. So I wonder to what extent that kind of stuff is going on, which we obviously can't see unless we dig into the code in the background, but I think that's beyond the scope of this video. We talk about talent being sort of like digital marketing these days, or this website is almost like a product website and the talent is your customer. To what extent are they implementing more digital marketing type techniques, and that goes for any company. I'd imagine they are, because they're one of the evangelists out there talking about how recruiting is more like digital marketing these days. So just an important point to make here, I think, to put your career site on a platform, I think, where you can get those insights and understand how your customer, quote unquote customer, is engaging and interacting with your content. So I think it's crucially important.
So let's keep moving along here. Maybe we can just take a sort of skim through the rest of this, but you can see that they start to talk about, again, the culture and how their values define us. Higher level stuff here, some pictures, like what I would call sort of boilerplate material, things that a lot of companies, to be honest, are saying. Again, in the spirit of looking at this from the angle of, all right, well, does this differentiate you in any way? I'm not sure that this really hits that mark. It's nice to see, it's nice to hear act like an owner, take intelligent risks, demand excellence, be open, honest, and constructive. But I think a lot of us at this point, especially sort of millennials, we're sort of tuning out those kind of boilerplate messages and not really trusting the company or taking the company's word for it. So again, this comes back to, I want to hear this from someone specifically, and I want to hear their story, someone who actually works there instead of, the marketing team that put this together.
Yeah, it's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of fluff there.
I do like having different awards up here, and they have a nice sort of diverse collection of awards in a way. Again, some of these are sort of pay to play, so I take them with a grain of salt. Another quote here from a publication, and then you're back to sort of the links again. To wrap this up here, we'll take a quick look through some of this other stuff here. They have a bifurcated part of the site here where you can actually look at the diversity section and also the benefits section. They do provide a list of benefits, which if you're looking at a top tier tech company, they're impressive compared to anyone else, but compared to other companies that you might be looking at, like LinkedIn, I'm not sure, again, how much these differentiate you. 401k stuff, paid time off, things like that, employee stock purchase plans, sort of table stakes, to be honest. But if we take the other fork in the road over to diversity, I always like to see what companies are saying around this and how serious they are. They're putting together employee resource groups, which I think are a really good way to actually bring people's different voices out within a company. And I think they also provide you a really good opportunity to get those voices outward facing, right? And have those ERGs, those employee resource groups, actually help you with recruiting.
One critique I'd say, or one improvement here, is that it could be valuable to have some of these folks front and center here talking quotes and or a little bit more in-depth stuff, right? Maybe a video, some folks talking about their experience with an employee resource group. That could really make this a lot more powerful, Again, from the voice of the employee. This is all sort of, it sounds nice, but I'd like to hear somebody actually talk about it.
Yeah. Let me contact maybe the leaders of these groups, right? And get in touch with them. I think that will be really powerful, to your point. Taking a step back and providing some takeaways on what we've seen, Jason, one good thing and one bad thing that you saw from our walkthrough here.
Yeah, I think I'd say for one good thing, positive, I think leading with people, although to your point, it's the sort of flip side of the coin there. I think you could have made those a little bit more in depth up front. So allow us to sort of drill down on some of these folks and hear their stories a little bit more detail. And why not start with that? So it's great to lead with people, but not so great that you have to sort of scroll down further to read these people's stories or other people's stories in depth, right? I think make those in-depth stories more front and center. I'd say would be my critique here. Put the people first and foremost and tell their story everywhere you can. I don't think you can do
Exactly.
too much there.
I'll summarize what I think, which is the more specific you can be about your company, counterintuitively, the more universal that makes you feel, right? So, for instance, this came from a professor of mine from a creative writing course in college. They said when you're writing a character, make them as quirky and specific as possible. It ends up being that they actually are way more generalizable, way more relatable that way, because everyone, if you think about it, is sort of quirky and specific in their own way. Same thing holds
Yeah.
here. Show me those stories. Show me those again. The Dhruva Chandra. Tell me the story about how he came to be at LinkedIn and what his path is there and his hopes and fears or whatever. Right. Give me that case study. And so diving in wherever you can is a huge thing to do, especially on a careers page where it's all about the people. But if you just leave it at that level, it doesn't ring true. So
Yeah.
we'll wrap it
Yeah.
up there. Jason, thanks for walking through this with me. And thank you to folks who are watching in a meta way on LinkedIn, a LinkedIn careers page teardown on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. Hope to see you on the next one. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for joining us.